Here's the familiar gesture all through the campaign. And now we will have the inaugural address of President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
This is President Eisenhower's 1953 inauguration speech. The election of 1952 was a very interesting one in many ways. Both candidates were well respected and well liked throughout America. But first, to understand the election as a whole, an introduction and background of both candidates is needed. Let's begin with Dwight D. Eisenhower. Dwight David Eisenhower was born on October 14, 1890. He was the third of 7 sons born to David and Ida Eisenhower. Dwight graduated from high school in Abilene, Kansas. He received an appointment to West Point in 1911 by Kansas Senator Joseph Bristow, and he accepted. At West Point, Eisenhower managed to graduate in the top half of his class in 1915, which was also known as the class stars fell on. After graduation, Eisenhower married Mamie Geneva Dowd on July 1, 1916. During the next years, Eisenhower began to work his way up the military ranks, and in May 1942, in the midst of war, Eisenhower was promoted to Major General. This began his quick ascent to the Supreme Commander in the D-Day invasions on June 6, 1944. After this, Eisenhower quickly became a greatly admired American figure and war hero. His abundant military success and admiration from the American people set him up as a perfect presidential candidate. Both Democrats and Republicans wanted Eisenhower on their team, so to speak. However, in 1952, he declared he was a Republican and would be running as a presidential candidate. His moderate, less defined views promised to attract independent voters, as well as his military fame. Eisenhower got the Republican bid over Ohio Senator Robert Taft. And now, to the next candidate. Adlai Ewing Stevenson was born in Los Angeles, California on February 5, 1900, to Louis and Helen Stevenson. He grew up in Bloomington, Illinois, and attended Princeton University, graduating in 1922, then attending Northwestern Law School and graduating in 1926. He easily got a job at a law firm and became a Chicago socialite. Adlai did work for the Agricultural Adjustment Act and became involved in many civic activities. During the war years, Stevenson was appointed assistant to the Secretary of the Navy and participated in many foreign affairs. In 1949, Stevenson ran for the Illinois governor and defeated the incumbent in a landslide. As governor, his achievements included reorganizing the state police and cracking down on illegal gambling. In 1952, still governor of Illinois, President Harry Truman proposed that Stevenson run for the presidential election. After some hesitation, Stevenson accepted the nomination. As the election of 1952 neared, President Truman's popularity was at an all-time low, with his administration having a corrupt image due to Red Scares and rising McCarthyism, as well as Truman's decision to send American troops to Korea in 1950. President Truman's approval mark was at 22%, according to Gallup polls. So, by the time the 1952 election rolled around, many of these issues surrounding Truman's presidency were in question. Although there are always many issues in every election, the main issues in 1952 were the Korean War, corruption in the government, communism, and the high cost of living. Each candidate had a different way of addressing each of these issues. Eisenhower went the K1, C2 approach, focusing on how he would end the war in Korea, end government corruption, and deal with the rising threat of communism. Instead of answering specific policy questions, he instead attacked the previous Democrats' leadership. Eisenhower attacked Truman's administration's involvement in bribery and scandal and capitalized on Truman's inability to get out of Korea. Stevenson also tried to distance himself from Truman's previous presidency and tried to establish himself as an intellectual to the American public. However, when dealing with Senator McCarthy and the biggest issue of the 1952 campaign, communism, He continually criticized the actions of Senator McCarthy while still claiming that America must guard against communism. But even with much criticism about communism and his troubles establishing himself as a candidate for the people, a photograph by Bill Gallagher increased his popularity. This photo of the hole in the shoe became so loved by his campaign supporters that they sold lapel pins and t-shirts to symbolize Stevenson's everyman frugality. The candidate himself even remarked, "Better a hole in the shoe than a hole in the head." The 1952 election was an interesting one because it was the first time both candidates really utilized television and spot ads. Dwight Eisenhower used short ads right after a popular television show to reach more viewers. Here's an example.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John or Dean or Harry, let's do that big job right. Just get in step with the guy that's hep, get in step with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We got to get where we are going, travel day and night for president. Let Adelaide go the other way, we'll all go with Ike. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington, we'll take Ike to Washington.
Now is the time for all good Americans to come to the aid of their country.
Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president.
Unlike Eisenhower, Adlai Stevenson used the television to air 18 half-hour speeches that aired on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 10:30 p.m. Not only were these speeches expensive, they were also too late at night to reach any viewers. Although he did use some spot ads, like this one.
Vote Stevenson, vote Stevenson. A man you can believe in, son. From Illinois, whence Lincoln came, his leadership has won him fame. A soldier man is always bound to think in terms of battlegrounds. But Stevenson, civilian son, will lead us till the peace is won.
Stevenson would not personally appear in these ads, making them much less effective than Eisenhower's Eisenhower Answers America spot ads. These ads showed Eisenhower as a normal person that was in touch with the people. The ads also focused on the major issues surrounding the election. Both candidates campaigned very hard, and each had a mutual respect for the other. But when it came right down to it, there was no way Adlai Stevenson could compete with war hero Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower won a big victory with 55% of the popular vote and a landslide of 442 electoral votes compared to Stevenson's 49. As you can see, Eisenhower even fared well in the usually Democratic Southern states, taking a larger popular vote than any previous Republican candidate. Eisenhower generally attracted Catholics and Eastern Europeans, which usually voted Democrat, while Stevenson appealed to Union members, African Americans, and Jews. The election of 1952 is significant because it really defines and started an era in American history. Even though America was going through a time of great prosperity during the 1950s, this election really shows the fears of the people during this time. The fear of communism and the fear of another war were on the minds of every American citizen all the time. This was represented in the main issues of the election. This election was also the beginning of many elections dealing with the Cold War and spread of communism. It was truly the beginning of an era of prosperity and anxiety for the American people.